We'll start with
Yeah,
that.
man.
Okay, we are live. Um, yeah, welcome to the State of the Network. It is May 9th, 2022, and on here with Daniel at @𝗱𝗲𝗀 and BFG Neil.
Yo,
Hey guys.
So I don't know if you guys want to talk it off, kick it off for this tattoo talk, but apparently there's word that if you show up at consensus, you are going to be held down and get a helium style tattoo or some kind of consensus style tattoo. So
We gotta do it. I gotta do it. It's the first time. Imagine I've been in the Helium ecosystem for almost 2 years, right?
yeah,
Summer 2020, and everybody, like we know so many people, but we've never seen them in person.
yeah.
It's the first time in
yep.
2 years after COVID and everything that everybody's gonna get together and get drunk and get balloon tattoos, I guess, right?
Yeah, I like the balloon tattoos. I mean, one thing that actually I hadn't thought about it because you're famous in my world, Daniel, is that folks may not know who you are other than you're associated Hotspotty, but you were the one who kind of made it easy for me to get into helium because you had this DIY video. Like you're fucking super famous in my world.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, I think I use the
Uh,
same videos.
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about myself in the beginning.
sure.
When I used to work for 𝗱𝗶𝘀𝗀 up to like 2018.
Okay.
𝗱𝗱𝗀 is this company that does fleet management. They managed to port Docker into ARM processors, like a Raspberry Pi, and that was the company started basically to manage huge fleets of devices. And at that time, there was Aaron from 𝗪𝗵𝘁. He has a
Hmm.
company called 𝗨 and can you hear me? Okay,
Yep.
just like okay, cool. And because they are like very close with Balena and Pi Supply, Aaron sent me some like a LoRa concentrator like back in 2018, and I have it in my house. It's like I had one that was like a hat for Raspberry Pi, but also I had one for this BBC microcontroller thing. And at that time, it was just I play around a little bit with the things network back then, and then just I had that thing in a box for 2 years. Um, and then this helium thing came along, and I was like, shit, this is really cool.
Yeah.
This like light bulb moment, and I couldn't stop thinking about helium, about everything that could be built in the future. At that time, there was like I don't know 3,000 4,000 hotspots, mostly in San Francisco area. And I was like talking to Travis. They were thinking about the whole DIY thing, and I was like spending all my day trying to figure out how to port the concentrator that I had, which was an old one, into to work with the Raspberry Pi and to make it into like a hotspot. Uh, it was, and then I managed to make it work with, I think it was with Balena also. It was so cool. I
Yeah.
remember like me putting an antenna in my kitchen, walking around my neighborhood, with my phone and the console in one hand. I have this little device and just like walking and I press a button and send like a beacon. And I say, okay, I can see the message on the console. Let's walk a little bit further away. I mean, at that time there was like my hotspot in whole, mostly Europe. There was like, I guess some in England, but between like Spain, France, Italy, Portugal, there was only one in my kitchen. It was a very exciting time.
Yeah, and you had like a geeky background. I mean, I was looking around on whatever is linked to your website from Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever it is, and you were like building stuff to open your door with with
Oh man,
Laura, right?
yes.
Yeah, so it's like this
No,
was
that
not by a long shot the first time you saw this stuff.
no, yeah. I mean, I've been building shit since I was. Sorry about my language. I've been building stuff since I was very young. And my dad is also an electrical engineer,
Yep.
so I was like 12 years old learning how to solder and then doing like very simple things with LEDs. Um, so yeah, my dad came to visit when I moved to Portugal in 2018,
Hmm.
and the door of the building was like really bad, like to the point that I gave him my key to get inside the house when I was at home, and he didn't manage to get in the house for like half an hour.
Yep.
And at that point, I was like, okay, I need to do something about that because we're gonna have a lot of friends coming at that summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I just like opened my the whole like intercom system and hooked to like a photon. What is the company called again? It's like one is IoT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No, if people want
yeah,
to see it, that's it was a super cool journey to see, but it just kind of established for me that that you're a super valuable member of the network. You're not just some dude cruising in, some jackass like me, like, hey, what does this thing do? Is that you actually know what's going on? So
I
super,
mean, I'd like to make my life easier
yeah,
and build things basically, right?
yeah, love it. Let's see. So that's who you are. I think that's the when people kind of look at this, like, okay, that's why this guy's on here. Um, Neil, do you want to kick us off or kind of catch us up from last week? Remember, you had said, "Hey, Helium's going to drop something today," or they hinted about it. What the 5G news? Catch us up on that.
Yeah, they just basically talked about 5G. It wasn't that exciting as I'd hoped, but the exciting bit for me in the background was that they were saying that everything applies for 5G applies for Wi-Fi 6 offload, and there'll be documents coming out for Wi-Fi 6 offload, and that's basically Europe and everywhere, not just the States. So,
Right.
but they announced that they've been working on POC, working on the device that can do POC for 5G. So really interesting. Things are moving on, and it sounds like it's going to come soon, but I'm way more excited about the Wi-Fi offload stuff than I am 5G.
How come?
CBRS.
What's the
Just because it's global, it
Because it
just
makes
means we can get involved.
accessible for you guys?
I'm sat here looking at certain people get bobbers, for testing like yourself.
So,
And
You're gonna be looking at all gonna see everybody like in the US using the 5G CBRS, and then us in Europe just like sucking our thumbs.
yeah, we can't really do anything. We can make all these plans, and I've
Yeah.
done plans myself of talking to people that saying, we can do LoRa at the moment, but then we can move it to 5G or Wi-Fi offload eventually.
Yep.
And that they think there's more money in that because there's more devices. So,
Yeah, but God, until Helium signs any deals, that's the thing is I'm looking at this Bobber 500 that Bobcat sent me, and they're like, "Oh, just set this up and talk about it, whatever." It's like, dude, I don't know what to talk about. Like, it's going to be fun to set it up because it's geeky stuff like plugging things in, and I feel like I'm tech savvy when I do that, although that's not true. But like this, as far as I know, like nothing's going to actually happen. I mean, maybe if someone has one of these mapper things that you're talking about that are going to come out, like cool, it'll get mapped. But beyond that, for right now, nothing's happening. So it's like this hurry up and wait status.
I think 𝗚𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗴 had the favourite test that I saw was that he got his 5G hotspot working, then played Pokemon Go over it. That's proving that the network works and it works with devices. So it's pretty cool to see that happen, but it's not really that exciting, is it?
No.
Yeah, I mean it's still early. 5G is hard, and I think it's gonna take us still a while for things to get common. But the Wi-Fi 6E, I think it's gonna be super exciting in Europe, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And will you need to buy a special miner for that? I'm seeing 619 OTA. Like is that going to be the same kind of thing? You have to have the Wi-Fi 6 capable miner. You can't use your old.
Yeah,
setup,
these way more CPU and stuff, and higher power antennas to even get outside of your house.
Yeah. I was talking with Rollinson about putting these indoor antennas outdoor. I'm like, there's no way I'm doing an indoor setup, pretty much ever. Like that's just not interesting to me. And he was like, well, if you put it outside, it's got to be below 6 meters, or you need a CPI, like a certified something installer, at least in the States here. And so I looked at that, and those are $500, and you take an online test. It's like, well, you're probably looking at a future CPI here then, because I'm putting this thing up high.
That's definitely not a thing of 5G, right? Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, definitely get it done. It's why I always think about doing my license for. Now that I do so much RF stuff, I should do all the licensing and get certified. I think it's worth it, right? We've just been doing this for as non-certified technicians for so long. We know what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog.
Oh,
No worries.
little dogs. And then we had so Big Dave Akers is going to come on here and talk about something, and he dropped this like nugget in our little chat that I don't think any of us totally gets. But he says there are more hotspots not earning than there were onboarding on the 1st November 2021 than we're earning on the 30th November 2020. So I think, and maybe Neil or Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, that means more hotspots came on board early November, but more hotspots were earning than new hotspots joining the network. So basically the network growth is slowing down, was my takeaway.
I think he was saying that basically sorry, my dog's going to bark, but there was more people not earning than were onboarding at the same time. So we onboard about 80,000 a month, but there was more people not earning than are onboarding. So
so we'd expect to see people upset about it.
How likely I do think that like the way that the network grew and then the hardware struggling to keep up with the network, that also has a big impact on everything that's happening, right?
Yeah.
Which do you guys think the light hotspot's going to come out on Wednesday?
Well,
it
we're on
good.
Opposite sides. Neil thinks it's
Make
going to
your
go
bets,
super smooth.
right?
Yeah.
It looks good. I mean, the great thing what they did with the Discord, opening those core dev channels, is you can follow along.
Yeah.
There was one bug that looked like they were going to delay it because it was crashing the hotspots. But they said it looks like it's been fixed, and they've been talking about timings and things and how they're going to ramp it up as it comes on. And so it looks like everything's set for the day, at least. We would have heard something by now, because if they have to do a firmware release, they have to give everyone a week or two's notice. So we would have had that by now if it was going to be delayed. So,
and the latest release, good.
Yeah, no, I think they said they're going to update the Docker image for the light hotspots, which I didn't check, but if they're going to do the update on Wednesday, then this Docker update should have been done already. I didn't check to make sure.
Yeah, so they had a 050601, but they said don't update to that. They're just testing that. And the last one was like a 426 or 427, something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's got following along those dev channels. You can see them say, like, oh, that we're going to do a release because we have to for testnet, but please don't use it. But we could see that happening before it happened, not just seeing a new image and going, oh, what's this?
Yeah. I
imagine there's a maker with like automations that just automatically, right? And then breaks everybody's hotspot.
No, nobody wants to be bricked. Although I think I may have done something to Amateur Jade Hair. I updated it yesterday at noon. I was like, oh man, I'm way behind updating this thing, and it stopped earning totally. So I got to go back in and look at it.
It's like a DIY, right?
Yeah, it's DIY, so it's probably not bricked. It's just I did something stupid. Because I updated it to the 506, and then I saw a message about like, hey, we're just testing. Don't update to this one, and took it back.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see what's going to happen to the validators when I think my main concern is the validators over the hardware itself of the hotspots.
Right.
I would expect the whole validators CPU usage like spike up hardcore, or not. But I'm super I'm cooking my popcorn, just gonna see what's gonna happen.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so, who knows, eh?
We got super technical almost right away. Let's rewind to what we thought we were going to kick off. Neil, is that last week we saw a bunch of folks kind of questioning about how to change the network, and these are questions that we all see all the time. Is like, how does the network get better, and why isn't someone doing this, or why doesn't the network fix that, or why doesn't Helium do this or do that? Do you want to talk like in general how does that get fixed?
Yeah, I mean, it happens nearly every other day. Someone talks to me and says, oh, Nova are being slow at doing this, or it's just taking time. Why isn't anyone focusing on this? And it's that mentality that someone like Nova is a centralized entity, should be fixing everything for us, which is bad. But we need to be doing these HIPs ourselves and providing code for the HIPs and actually taking part in the development. Nova shouldn't be the only developer of this chain, but at the moment they are. There's a few people helping out on the sidelines to fix bugs and things, but no one's really taking on the big jobs to fix the network. If you look at LoRaWAN, for example, we only support one class of devices. But what would you rather have Nova do? Fix light gateways or write Class C devices? They just don't have the bandwidth to do both, and we need to take part in that. And a big part of that is raising HIPs and things. And I think that's where I wanted to talk about it this week. Is that often people will just submit a HIP straight away, and they'll submit it, and it's this half a paragraph sentence of how to fix a network. Yep. And it just needs to kind of change. We need to be better at doing it and talking about this in conversation. The process has always been that you would raise a HIP in a private GitHub repository, share it with the community, get feedback on that idea, and make sure it's an idea that's worth doing, and then flesh out the HIP and submit it once you've got a group of people talking about it, and that you've been assured it's a good idea, and that you can back that up with some, maybe code eventually, but not just necessarily with code. But the problem is we're seeing a lot of HIPs that will just come in, and there'll be, a couple of paragraphs, and it'll have one author, and that author's failed to get everyone's views on this. So when they get presented, there's a lot of discourse just to refine the HIP, when a lot of people's opinions are that HIP should never have gone in, and that's how we get from, I think it's 22 to 60 HIPs now active. The HIP 22 to 60, that's how many we've got active, because no one's really seeing if the issue needs to be solved, should be solved, and then supporting it with code.
Right. Huh. So do you think, is there going to be like a HIP for filtering new HIPs?
Well, it just needs some refinement, and some serious. I always go back to this point that just because there's a HIP and there's been a vote on it does not mean it's going to be introduced to the network. someone has to write the code for that. And if you want Nova to do it, then, well, they've been busy on like hotspots for the longest time now. What's next? Probably 5G, probably Wi-Fi 6, maybe Class C devices for LoRaWAN eventually, things like that. And I'd rather them be dealing with that than a hit that doesn't make much sense for the network.
Sure.
Yeah, I remember talking to Capcom back beginning of last year about multisig for the wallets, because we have multisig right now only for like changing key variables, like environment variables for the blockchain, etc. With companies like more and more being like massive enterprise buying hotspots, there's kind of the need for multisig on the wallet app as well, which is not implemented. And then I remember he was like, "Oh man, you can just like implement it yourself, right, and submit a pull request." I'm like, yeah, ideally that's the way things should go, but it's pretty hard to code things for the blockchain and everything. On the bright side, more and more things are being written in Rust and less in Erlang. I think there's a big push for Helium Foundation and also Nova Labs to switch everything to Rust. I'm not a Rust developer, but I know that's definitely much sane to code in Rust than in Erlang. So I think that's also a massive push and improvement that's going to help the development of the network.
Just because that makes it more accessible, right? There's less Erlang developers than there are Rust developers. That's the
100% wider community. It's just more people that can help out. Obviously Erlang's got its place and has had its place, but it looks like everything's being taken out. Like Gateway RS is all Rust, and the Erlang part of the mine is going away, so it'd be a lot easier to have a larger pool to work on this.
We spend a lot of time for Hotspotty looking at the source code in Erlang, and it's I feel like Indiana Jones, right? Like figuring out where's the connections and how things work. Definitely the rest would be much easier to get things done, and not coding, right? Just try to understand the algorithms and everything. Coding and be like, how the hell does this thing work? It's weird, but it's
well, let's jump into two things that a normal person watching this might ask. Is Neil, you talked about Class C devices. Can you talk a little bit about what those are and why that might be important?
Class C devices listen for downlinks at all times. So if you had something like, for example, a pet tracker, and you needed to find your dog, at the moment with Class A devices, if you had that thing only checking in once an hour, and you needed to find your dog urgently, you would have to wait that hour for the uplink to happen, for the downlink to happen. But with Class C devices, they're always listening for downlinks, so it would be heard instantly, and you can react instantly. So in the case of finding a dog, you wouldn't have to wait an hour before the tracker was activated. You would just activate it immediately. So it's like better for real-time tracking or real-time updating things.
Yeah. Let's jump in a little bit to that, because that's sort of been my world for the last couple of weeks, is kind of diving into this thing head first and this whole OUI thing. So the way that the Helium network works, for most of us, it's just like, oh, it's a radio device and you put it on your dog and then you find your dog. But we'll dive in a little bit deeper right now just to explain that. Is all of these different sensors or devices send out what are called uplinks. And so there's uplinks and downlinks. Uplinks is a packet of data that's sent from the device to whatever router or console, and then that device is decoded, and then sent to, or that data is decoded and then sent to something where a human can kind of look at it and see and make sense of it. Like, oh, that it says like BE00149226, whatever it is, like that means that the temperature is 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Right, like something pretty simple like that. And then there's
does seem like Wizard's maths, doesn't it? These random string of characters. You're like, what the hell format's that? And then you realise it's base 64 to little endian to this to that. So much.
Oh, it's crazy. But this idea of uplinks and downlinks is that at the end of the uplink, so the sensor sends out its thing, and you can set your sensor to send out an uplink every 10 minutes. At the end of the uplink, if I'm understanding it right, it'll say like, hey, is there anything for me? And that's when you can then interact with that thing and send a downlink and have that downlink kind of set and queued and waiting to go in. And that downlink says, oh yeah, there is something for you. I want you to change whatever. I want you to tell me what this thing is, or I want you to change your reporting time, or et cetera, et cetera. it's a difficult thing for the kind of average person to wrap their heads around when they first hear it, because we're all used to everything working two-way all the time. We all like use cell phones, and your cell phone's always on. It's not like, I mean, how would that even be analogous? Is it'd be like you'd have to call someone, and at the end of your call, there'd be something coming back like saying, "Hey, are you ready for a phone call?" And they get a text. Like it's like so weird and unusual.
You call your secretary
Yeah.
asking for messages.
Yeah, totally. So this Class C thing is a big deal. Now the other side of that is if it's listening all the time, it's a higher energy.
Power usage,
Higher
yeah,
power
more.
usage,
Yeah, it's just run out quicker. But there's certain things that you just need to track real time and make live updates to. You know,
Yep. Yep.
there's a time and place for a Class A device. You know, if you're in a field and you're measuring soil moisture, you're never really going to need to change much, and you might just check in once an hour, and that's
Right.
fine. But some things like, you know, you might be monitoring I don't know, water flow, and then you see the flow's too high, and you need to turn it off or turn it down. Then you need Class C to be able to react instantly rather than wait for the next check-in.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, Neil, we were talking about this before. I'd like you guys to tell me how reasonable or just batshit crazy this idea is. I just bought this OUI, and the OUI is a thing that allows you to run router and console.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a business. It's worthwhile, but someone said to me the other day, why don't you run a OUI? And I said, you know, for that reason. It's so technical and so much. It's like someone else needs to set up a layer for that.
Yeah. So I think the environment that I saw is that right now anyone can use Helium's console up to a limit of 10 devices for free. Right, you know, you just pay for the data on the device. There's some costs that Helium is absorbing on their side, right, that are basically hidden to all, not hidden to all of us, but like we don't have to pay them when we add a device. I forget, it's like 40 cents or 35 cents or some small amount to add a device, and they take care of that for us. And so what I saw is I started seeing in the Gristle Crew chat and also on kind of Twitter's like, what do I do if I've got more than 10 devices? But I'm not IBM. I don't have like 30,000 devices, and you know I don't want to run my own router console. So I think there's this business in there where Gristle King can run a router console and charge some amount per device, say like $1 or $2 per device per month, and you can run as many as you want up to, I don't know, like 100, something like that. It seems like it's pretty technical. It's certainly not going to be me that ends up running it.
Yeah, you've just got to remember, you know, if you're providing a service, you're going to have to make sure those servers are up all the time. So if it crashes, it's your fault, you know.
Yep.
So will anyone want to use that many devices on there? There's a few out there like 𝗚𝗿𝗶𝘀𝘁𝗹𝗲 run their own console now.
Yep.
Disk91, Paul, he runs his own European router. That's very important for GDRP stuff, keeping everything inside the EU. So, yeah, there's definitely room for it, 100%.
Yeah. Daniel, what do you think? Because you're into this stuff as well. Is this the dumbest thing you've ever heard? Is it reasonable? Do you think there's a market for it?
Definitely there's a market for it, but you're going to get into the infrastructure, right? Maintaining the infrastructure, not sleeping, getting calls.
You know how that is.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that's like a hard no from you. So I guess what I'm looking for is someone who's watching this who's like, hey, I'm a geek and I love that stuff. I hate talking to people. I don't want to do the marketing. I would love to work with you. That's kind of my big ask, is if you like this side and want to know more about it. And I think that's been the interesting pieces as I've gone through and set it up. You start to figure out all of these different other pieces that I didn't know exist. In the same way that when we found DIY, like, you know, at first you think it's a radio and then it's like, oh no, it's a packet forwarder and miner and here's how they talk. And then we saw the whole exploit piece where, you know, putting middleman in there. And it just, as you dive deeper and deeper into this stuff, you learn more and more about the network, and it's like endlessly interesting.
There's so much
I would love
to it.
to run one. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely would love to run one as well. Just don't have the time yet. Yeah, I haven't been spending a lot of time with sensors. That's something that I also miss a lot in terms of like soldering and then building things.
Yeah.
I mean, Hotspotty has been taking most of my time in the past like year and a half. But it's definitely something that I want to do more and more.
Yeah.
You can run for yourself as well, right? The OUI.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to necessarily become like a product.
No. So, but here's the thing though, if I'm understanding it right. So it was whatever, $900 to buy it. So I bought it at the worst time for Helium because HNT is like $13. So I burned, I don't know, 64 HNT or whatever it was. It's like, I'm curious. And then it's this is just general, like $200, maybe $250 a month to run the Amazon, the AWS EC2 large. It's something like that. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper, but it's not like if you're just running 20 devices, it's too expensive, right? You don't need to spend $200 plus the whatever it was, 900 to buy in. And that's where I think it's going to be kind of pretty interesting. And maybe I talked about this is if you end up buying this GK NFT, maybe it gives you access to this OUI. I don't think that's a great model, but it ends up being kind of interesting.
Yeah. Do you need to have that strong of a machine to run that? I haven't tried, so I have no
Couldn't
idea.
say.
No, I was
I
following.
wouldn't think it need to be that big though, right?
No, I was
You might
following
be able to get
Paul's.
something smaller.
Yeah, Disc 91 has got instructions on how to do it, and that was what he was recommending. And I think is it Lewis just came out with something within the last month, like a whole hour-long YouTube video on setting up console and router. So I haven't looked to see what he's done.
All right.
But
Yeah.
I guess we got some
for
geeks in
server,
chat.
yeah, server-wise, you could always go cheaper. I don't use Amazon for anything because I'm always scared of like getting a 20,000 bill by mistake.
Please
Uh,
don't.
you
I'm
could
not going to get that.
you can start with like DigitalOcean with like a $20 per month server. That should be more than enough.
Yep.
It's fairly easy to set up and everything, because I think the mainly cost is the running cost the problem, right? You buy the one big chunk, but
Yep.
then if everything else was like $20 per month, then it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think more and more companies are going to start running their own private ones for their devices, right? They're going to use the Helium network, but then the console side, they're going to just run their own closed infrastructure, etc.
Yeah. It's super curious. I mean, I also see that there seems to be potential for kind of expanding that business out on the integration side. So my thought is if someone is savvy enough to run console and router, they're probably savvy enough to figure out some integrations and say, okay, here are things that there aren't integrations for, and here are ways to display that data in ways that aren't happening right now. And then make that available to white label. And the same, I think, Neil, the same kind of way that you're doing with TrackPack. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm just trying to follow something else.
I mean, it's not just that as well. It's like we've had to write an onboarding piece that deals with console and automatically adds devices and labels and enables them and disables them. That software's just not written. So we've had to go away and write that. And now that we've written it, other companies are saying, "Oh, can we use that?"
Yeah.
So there's every time we do something on this network for the first time, like there's so many other people wanting to do it too. So getting in at these stages, like Daniel just said, all of his time sucked up with Hotspotty. He'd love to run an OUI, but it's just another job on the list of things that we'd like to do. It's like we're just running out of time to do them all. It's like there just needs to be more people helping out and building these solutions.
Yeah. Speaking of Hotspotty, Neil and I kind of started this thing because we wanted to have something to talk, or like some way to connect with the community once a week to do this state of the network thing. It started off as a funny thing, and then we started getting requests for sponsorships. And I think eventually we'll end up opening something at like the 20-minute and the 40-minute mark, saying this show's sponsored by. We don't have that right now, but Daniel, since we got you on here, tell me about Hotspotty.
So Hotspot is this website where you can manage and deploy your hotspots. No, it's like a quick update, and we finally became financially viable.
Congrats, man!
I start charging people.
Good for you.
I mean, yeah, man. We decided to be in the bootstrap route. We have a team of around 10, 12 people working with us now. We've been working pretty much 7 days a week since the beginning of last year. Like especially me and Max, we're just like there was the V1, which I sunsetted 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Like finally, like was like maybe we didn't have as many users as V2, but yeah, we've been working our ass off for like a long time. There was like a lot of learning. I learned so much about so many different topics. It's been insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, we finally start charging people on April, which I mean I know made a lot of people sad, but I already like put so much of my money in this project and so much like love and passion that I'm really happy that we're finally becoming something that's more sustainable.
Yeah. No, I just used it the other day when I was doing this Bobber 500. I'm like, oh, where am I going to place this thing? And if I put it, exactly on where the building is that I've got it versus somewhere else on the property, it changes the scale. Like your rewards, like the way that you guys have allowed people to visualize and understand the HIP 17 hexes is
15 and 17,
like tremendous. Yeah, 15, 17 is tremendously helpful.
Yeah, we still have a lot of like some work that we want to do because right now a lot of things are calculated in the front end, which means that depending on your computer and depending how populated the region that you're in, it can get quite heavy to do the calculation. So we plan to do this thing back end eventually. But yeah, we have like a massive roadmap already, trying to like figure out our fights, basically, right?
Yeah. No, you got to figure out what's gonna be it. All right. Well, that's our free sponsor for the week is Hotspotty. What is it? .net.com. It's hotspotty.net, I think.
.net. Yeah. Hotspot.net.
Yep.
Join today.
Yeah, love it. I mean, I use it. I'm a paying customer. I like it. And then I saw obviously we all see that Big Dave Akers is on, looking all kind of businessy. What's up, dog?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, beard's gone. I don't know if you're getting me very well. I've got a slow connection, I think.
Nope, 5x5. Yeah. You're coming through.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
What was your thing that you were talking about, Dave? The more hotspots earning than we're not earning, or something onboarded? Like, what are you seeing, kind of state of the network, numbers wise?
Yeah, so I think we've talked before about the number of hotspots that don't appear to be earning. So we've got close to 800,000 hotspots, but on a daily basis we see maybe 520,000 earning. So what's happened to the other 250, 300,000? So I did a bit of digging earlier in the week to have a look to see what was happening, and basically I looked at every hotspot on the network and the last day that it earned. So from what I found, there's 50,000 hotspots that have never earned anything. So I guess they could be recent onboards that haven't yet been turned on.
Jeez,
and
that's
then about 75,000 hotspots that hadn't done anything for more than 30 days. So there's a lot of hotspots that are either turned off or they've got some real issues for the last 30 days. But what I found surprising was that actually the rest of the hotspots are pretty well represented, just not on a daily basis. So you may get that it earns one day and it doesn't earn the next day. But there's some sort of synchronicity between some hotspots, so we always get a similar amount earning every day. But today mine won't earn, and tomorrow yours won't earn. Except I know that both of ours are earning every day.
Although mine did flatline because I broke something, so I gotta go fix it.
Oh no!
Totally, yeah.
So I found it really interesting.
Go
ahead.
Is there any correlation with the makers, or just like that's random?
I've not dug that far into it yet. It was more of a look up to see what was going on. But I've posted the data. We've got every hotspot on the last day it earned up to maybe 3 or 4 days ago, so I can stuff the makers in and see what the situation is with that. But yeah, I didn't get time to really have a look at that.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I think that the maker thing is quite important because I think Nick and I have been competing with our respective hotspots recently, and mine dropped this week, where I expected because the rest of the network seems to have picked up. We've got a few days where we're minting over the target. I expected earnings to go up rather than down, but for my best earner, it certainly went down quite significantly. So I'm wondering if there's an issue with some of the hotspots around me in terms of the manufacturer and them being offline and not beaconing, because obviously the majority of the rewards will come from witnessing. Yep. If the hotspots around you aren't beaconing, you're going to get them.
Yeah.
Good stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that's sort of my take on what's going on in the network at the moment, but. It's almost D-Day, isn't it? So it's almost time to celebrate exciting. New beginnings. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just screams peer-to-peer issues to me. We're hitting this sort of max number, and maybe we've done that at lower than we thought. Is what's on the network. So there's always this certain number that's doing it because that's all the peer-to-peer can handle. But we'll see.
Yeah, it was. I don't have the graph to hand, but it was interesting to see that the percent of hotspots that fall into that category since January the 1st, 2021, the percent is pretty stable. So I think it started at something like 78% of the network was earning, and we're down to around 71, 72%. So over 18 months, despite the exponential growth of the number of hotspots, that percentage has stayed pretty much stable, which it just seems odd. That we've got that sort of stability in the background, but we'll see what happens on Wednesday, isn't it?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. I see we
Like,
got our some of our regulars on the chat. We got I think it's Jeremy on Wireless Workshop TV. I think that's Rollinson. I'm seeing William Taylor with a sense cap sucks. Okay. I think the sense caps are good just because at least they've got the dashboard, right? And they've got a pretty good one, if I'm remembering right.
Do you need to use dashboards?
You tell me.
I've never used them.
No, I mean, I don't use them anymore, but I got kind of spoiled and also lucky with these DIYs that I could always SSH into them and kind of see whatever I needed to see. But that is not the experience. I mean, there's something like only 400 DIYs ever onboarded and only 700 alpha codes. It's like something like that. And hopefully those numbers aren't top secret. But like, there's not a lot of them. I just got super lucky to get into it, but it also kind of hamstrung me in understanding the frustrations other people had. And I'm seeing you
had light hotspots before anyone else did. You know, you had the miner in the cloud, which is a validator, and you had the packet forwarder in the wild. It's just how it should have always been. Like, it's the best for it. You know, all the syncing was done in the expensive server. You know, the CPU and everything.
Yeah. But it also means, like, I think 619 OTA on here is always asking, like, when is Rack going to have a dashboard? And I think for people who don't have maybe this changes on Wednesday when we go to light hotspots and you don't need a dashboard because nothing ever goes wrong. But man, for a lot of these people, like, having a dashboard is the only thing they can do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yes. Like my second hotspot that I built was a DOI with a Raspberry Pi Zero. So you can see that, like, a 5 Raspberry Pi is running no problem.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, same thing. Well, that's the packet forwarder, right? That's not the miner. Yeah,
the miner in the cloud have like a little like VPS for that.
Yep.
And just but what Dave was saying, like, for example, from my hotspots here in Lisbon, half of them are offline. I have a lot of them. They're like Rex V1. That some of them the SD card just blew off and then stopped working. Some of them is just someone that unplugged it to like do the laundry one day and then they forgot to plug it again. It's just that I haven't had time as well personally to go after and do all the crazy climbing that I did in Lisbon back last year.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that can happen, right? I don't have time to be managing my hotspots as much as I wanted, like, physically. So that could be one thing that happened with the network. A lot of people, like, just hotspots are going flying, they're dying, the SD card blew off, whatever.
Yep.
And they just don't go in and fix it. I have hotspots that I don't think I'll ever be able to get the seed phrase again because the SD card just, like, destroyed.
Yeah. I've got a that only hotspot like that where I'm like, man, I forget what I lost, but I lost something important, and I'm not able to do it, make it do what I want to do. It's stuck in my wallet, which is, I mean, it's a funny thing. We're gonna start to see, like, I think them as almost like maintenance or cleanup or garbage takeout tasks are going to start to be pretty important to get. Like Dave said, I mean, how many hotspots have never earned anything? Is having those on the network a load? Is there a way to, like, erase a hotspot from the network? If it's yours, not to erase someone else's, but to kind of keep the network pretty clean. Is that going to be necessary going forward? Or does
I guess it depends how the challenges are constructed with the validators. Whether the validators have got anything in them that will identify hotspots that just aren't online, or whether it will just say, right, that there's a hotspot onboarded. Let's challenge it. Because
they could have a graveyard.
You can challenge offline hotspots. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've certainly had a few people contact me recently and say, I've bought a secondhand miner. How do I get the owner to transfer ownership to me? I'm like, well, if they don't want to, you've just spent $300 or $500, and you've been scammed, I'm afraid. And I think people need to look out for that as well, because I think we are going to see more and more bad actors selling on hotspots and not passing on wallet details.
There's like a whole hotspot escrow business that you could build.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty cool. And now we got Joey on. I wanted to hit one thing before we get to you, Joey. Welcome. I saw in the channel that 𝗪𝗵𝘁 is a scam. And I will say that I just want to stick up a little bit for Nebra here. Like they did a terrible job at delivering hotspots for sure. No question there for me. Like they completely fucked that up. You couldn't have fucked it up worse if you tried. However, I will also say I don't think they're a scam. I've talked to Aaron a little bit. I've been kind of in the outside circles of that. And as much as it sounds weird, Nebra is one of the kind of best companies that's really protecting the health of the network as much as they can. And beyond that, like I'm not sure how much I want to say because I'm talking about shit I don't really know about.
They're one of the best. They're one of the better network providers as well, in the sense that all of their code is open source. You know, the whole stack is.
Yep.
And to top that off as well is they're open source in their design for the LoRa cards as well.
Yep.
You know, they're putting a lot of effort in. It's just they've had a very bad start.
Yeah, terrible execution so far. But just so you like, I want to make it clear, like, hey, here's where they made a giant mistake, and here's where they really fucked up. But also, here's where they're pretty good, and we want to encourage the people who are pretty good, who, even if they've made a pretty big mistake. So, yeah, send your Nebra hate to the dumpster somewhere. Joey, what do you got, dog? What's going on? You wanted to come on and talk about SubDAO stuff, right?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, there's a million things we could talk about. I guess I'm kind of curious what people are curious about right now. We've got consensus coming up with the Helium side event. It's going to be really exciting. I just got off a call about that, and I'm excited to be there. I know a lot of the folks on this call are actually going to be there, so I'm really excited to see a lot of you in person. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. So who's coming for sure? Dave Akers is coming. He's booked. Yeah. Daniel's coming. I'm pretty
coming
sure.
I'm all booked.
I want to come, but passport. I don't think I'm going to get it in time.
Do it, man. You can do it. Just make it happen.
Yeah.
I'll
I
try.
keep telling him he needs to try harder.
Yeah.
I only have a one-way ticket, so I don't know how long I'm staying.
That's
Okay.
the way to do it.
Good. Well, that's America's welcoming to all of our immigrants. So come stay with us. In fact, if you want to work with Gristle King on this router console thing, we'll work on some kind of visa deal because I need help.
You have like a couch or something?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dave's. I don't think you stayed on the couch. Dave, do we make a little bed for you?
Yeah, you made a little bed. It was great.
Well done,
Mind you, I did have jet lag, so I probably could have slept anywhere.
Yeah. And you lived on in 48 hours. You consumed something like 6 root beers, a Monster, and a giant burrito. That was your fuel for the entire America trip.
Yeah,
that was pretty awesome. All right, Joey. So I'm kind of checking out the chats. We got 619 OTA psyched on the stickers.
For context on that, I threw up a thing on Twitter and on Discord briefly. I had some stickers made, and then I got like overwhelming response on sending them out. So I'm still catching up. I've got one sitting on my desk right now. I'm just sending like one a day.
Okay.
As I, in the evenings, throw somebody's, name on an envelope. But I also just had these little ones made, which are pretty cool.
Ooh, fancy.
Very shiny. Yeah.
Yeah. Neil's got his. Like everybody's got stickers. Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say I got some helium ones recently. They're quite nice. So.
Where'd you get those? I keep seeing them. I can't figure out.
Don't you work for this company, Joey?
There was a Twitter thing, wasn't there? There was a Twitter poll asking for anyone to fill in a form and they get free stickers.
Oh, okay. I missed that one. Yeah, there's so much happening. So
yeah, I have a little batch at home. So next week, me and Max, we're flying to Brazil for the BitConf, where I'm going to be talking about helium.
Yep.
Yeah, man, Hotspotty sticker. Yes. And then, the Nova Lab sent us a few stickers to distribute at the Bitcoin conference. So I feel very, very special for having a bunch of those stickers.
Yeah.
Stickers, so nice.
I got a sticker machine at work. Maybe I'll print up some fun ones and bring them out to consensus. I saw Russ Thomas in the chat is asking about like which makers. Is there a possibility that you guys see, because you guys are all in this stuff, that some makers are going to do a worse job of transitioning to light hotspots? And can we say those names, or is that like no, everyone's going to be fine?
So the one that was doing the worst at it, which was totally radio silent, was Deeper, and they're not a problem anymore.
Right. Okay. So not worried about Deeper.
Well, who's next?
We've had that call.
Yeah. Fun stories there. Rack Bobcat 𝗪𝗵𝘁, 𝗱𝗪𝗁, all these folks have been talking about light hotspots since day one. Like before they even shipped hardware, they were trying to figure out how to build light hotspots. So we have so many, I can't even rattle off all of the makers at this point, but there are a bunch of channels that are set up as sort of internal external interface between the core devs and these makers. And so we make sure that they're all sort of in the loop with how the process of testnet, making sure that their hotspots are functioning on testnet, like that they're doing all of the stuff that they should. And at this point, I believe all of the makers have like been involved in that process in sort of these like segmented channels. So you should be pretty good. I think we all have our favorite makers and stuff at this point, and we could all sort of rattle off our favorites, and they're probably in good shape.
Okay, cool.
Quick question. Yeah. Do you know if all the makers are ready for the light hotspots? Because I was looking on that if they don't have the Docker image or whatever updated, the software update, they were going to stop doing proof of coverage right away.
Yeah, so we still have a little bit of time, right? 2 days, I guess, for them to sort of get that stuff all in there. And really all that is like, yeah, make sure that they are running this latest bundle of software. And then on that day, the existing miner process is going to sort of take a step back. It'll still be on the miner, or it'll still be on the hardware, right? So it'll still be loaded, it'll still be running in the background. So it's still going to be syncing, just sort of like making sure it can do what it needs to do in case it needs to like swap back over. But that main process is going to switch over to the gateway RS. So it's a Rust-based light packet forwarder that interfaces with the validators for all of the information that it needs. So that'll take over. It'll do all of the comms, and then we're going to let that run for a while. And then once we're like super confident that that's like the way to go, we want to minimize any disruptions, then we can go and blow away that whole miner process. So you'll still see some like higher bandwidth stuff, right out of the gate. Like that promise of lower bandwidth is not going to happen on Wednesday. That'll happen a little bit down the road. But to your question, Daniel, like I think everyone has got that loaded. I don't have all that information in my head as to who might still be working on getting that stuff rolled out.
Dig, we got a question from 𝗪𝗁𝘁 about Hotspotty. How's Hotspotty going to monitor hotspots without the 44158 requirement? I don't understand that. So, Daniel, see if you can make sense of that thing. I mean, like I guess the question is Hotspotty still going to work after light hotspots? I can't see how it wouldn't. But
no, we're going to turn off the servers and go to the beach in the summer.
See ya.
No, I think the thing that we're going to turn off probably once this done is the status check, right? Because there's no point of doing that anymore.
Yep.
You're not going to be pinging hotspots and stuff like that. I mean, everything in hotspots is still going to be working the same way. Planning hotspots, planning deployment, etc.
Yep.
Managing payouts, commissions. So yeah, that thing is for us. For hotspot is just a small feature that it's going to be good because I don't need then to manage all the servers that are doing these pings.
Yep.
We did, I think, we did over like 4 million manual pings over the past like few months. That was fun.
That seems like a lot. And Neil, you've already turned off heliumstatus.io.
Yeah,
right?
we turned it off. It was pointless just running anymore. These things rack up huge server bills when you leave them open to the public and let everyone use them. So we just turned it off.
Yeah,
but the thing is about that port thing is if we don't use port forwards anymore, you would only be able to ping your internet router, not your hotspot. There's no direct ping to your hotspot, so there's no way to know if the hotspot's on, only that the internet's working. That's what he's saying about the 44158. So the only real way you're going to know these hotspots are up is like using a sensor in their vicinity.
Oh, really?
Well, a lot of manufacturers are starting to build software into their things that will do like a heartbeat. And I'm not sure. This might be sort of built into some of like the Docker stuff that's going out. I'm not sure on the process there.
Yep.
But that's where like this migration to maker apps for your your hotspot management and all that, like they can start building in those tools and dashboarding.
Yeah,
And
we are adding
figure
actually this
that
for
out that way.
Hotspotty. We're talking with a couple of manufacturers that we're gonna do integration directly with their API, so that we can actually show. Like, imagine you go to a manufacturer hotspot, and then on Hotspotty status page, you can see exactly, or you can manually do like a physical ping that they have. Like they do usually have a Docker images for that, for example. So we're gonna do that for Hotspotty as well.
Rad. And then I
So,
saw
yeah.
back in the chat, let's see, Sod had asked, I think about HIP 22, which is the DIY HIP. Is that right? Am I remembering that right? Like, are we ever going to get to a point where you can build your own?
Yes. So like
Soon.
yes, like, well, I mean, this is a ways out, but last year, the Helium Foundation, formerly the DY, funded 2 grants around secure concentrators. So this is like a sort of new class of LoRa concentrator that would have sort of secure element and like a bunch of other stuff baked into it. And the idea there is that we can start to, like, what this would enable is basically a new HIP sort of to come out that would allow people to buy this particular type of hardware. You know, right now you're buying concentrators from Rack or eBuy or like whoever these other manufacturers are. And so they would be able to build stuff based on this spec, and then you could DIY hotspot out of that. So it would remove all of the overhead of makers and all that, the software that they're maintaining, the cases, like all that stuff, and you just be able to buy like a $80 concentrator.
Yeah, which would be super rad.
Yeah,
Cool.
that'd
So
be
it's coming. Neil, what's going on with this track pack less than 5 pounds?
Well,
quid?
that's the thing. I mean, like, I admire what Nebra are doing, and I understand why they're doing it, but their monitoring dashboard's going paid. So, you know, you've got to make that decision. Is it worth for you to pay for that fee, or just buy a sensor that's going to cost you, you know, nothing in a month?
Yeah.
So I was just saying, you know, if you're worried about the cost, you can use track packs. It's much cheaper.
Nice. What you got there, Joey?
I don't know, just any old dev board. Like, this is a really great opportunity to get in there and figure out how to build something on the network, because a device that pings every minute is literally the easiest thing you can build.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I guess maybe we're coming to the end here, but we've skipped in and out of kind of technical things on this show. And my encouragement would be to anyone watching who's like, oh, I'm not technical, or the thing that Joey just held up, I'll never be able to do that, is you can totally do that. It's like, get on Google, start looking at whatever the name was, if that was an ESP32 or like, and just Google that thing and Helium, and someone will have written a tutorial for you to do it. Like, that's the coolest thing about Helium, is it's this entry point into many different things, into crypto, into LoRa, into radio, into blockchain. Like, it makes it really accessible for all of us to get into this thing in whatever way we want to. So please don't look at that stuff and be like, it's too technical, I'll never do that. Like, you can totally do that stuff.
Ask for help as well if you don't understand something. The community is always there.
Yeah. I went from a complete idiot to a semi-idiot, so it's only taken a year.
Yeah. You know, jump in the Discord, the Sensor Dev channel. Helium Hacks happens once a week at 2 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday. And if you came into that and you're like, hey, I bought this hardware, I've tried this, and it's not like everyone in that call would jump on and just be like, oh, this is so exciting, because we love seeing people try to learn that stuff.
Yeah, no, we're still in this point where there's so much undone that it's funny, because I see on Twitter people like, my Helium whatever hotspot's not earning. And it's like, you fool, you are in like the beginning of the biggest part of the growth of this network. This is where it makes money for the rest of your life. Like, last year was just gravy. You can't live on gravy. This is the fucking meat coming down the pipe. Like, do not miss this goddamn thing just because you're like, I can't do electronics. Like, you could fucking do it. The whole internet is set up for you to win right now. 2022 is going to be the best goddamn year you ever had if you want to try this stuff. And people are like, my hotspot's not working. Like, fuck your hotspot. Go fucking learn how to use the network. This is the time to do it. So that's
100%. Love it.
if Neil can do it, and I just a quick share of my phone. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
I've just logged a 300-mile round trip with TrackPack today. So
Awesome.
and you can see
the coverage
the
is
coverage,
insane.
and with TrackPack you can see how many hotspots you're pinging off at each ping.
And that's all
all
going on the
started from
mappers
nothing.
too.
It's not at the moment,
again?
but it's going to be a switch that they can turn on because it has to be user choice. So.
Soon.
But
Yeah.
But that's the thing,
I
I started that myself by following guides. These guides, you can buy these TT-Go boards, and someone's already done the whole project. You just have to learn how to flash the thing, and put your keys on it, and you're away and going. And it's the same for 𝗀𝗏𝘀𝘁𝗹𝗲. There's loads of guides out there, or anything you want to do. There's so many guides for you to follow, and half the time you don't have to do anything at all.
Yeah, we're all like grabbing for shit around our desk. We all get these various electronics.
this is in the car.
Literally everywhere I go. There was a question in the chat about 5G, just sort of like a little global update there. We are full steam ahead on, there's actually 2 questions about 5G. So there's a lot going on there. I can't sort of paint any pictures of timelines because you never know. But it's full steam ahead. The core devs are all working on this at this point. Light hotspots are pretty much in the can. This sort of ties into the hip.
Careful, Joey.
It's
as good as done.
Did you really want to say that?
I
don't see anything could possibly go wrong from here.
I know at least one person is going to be shaving their head over this. I'm not sure who, but
it's like God himself couldn't come down and fuck up light hotspots. That thing is in the can. We are done.
It's looking solid. Like we're in good shape there.
Yep.
I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yep.
Let's see, what was I going to get?
UK 5G stuff.
Yeah, well, so like all of this sort of stuff is coming together, and so like this is about thinking about Helium not as a LoRaWAN network, but as an omni protocol platform for networks. And so we're going to start hearing a whole lot more about that this year. Like this is going to be the year of omni protocol. And so it's not just Helium 5G, it's Helium Wi-Fi 6, it's Helium as a network for VPNs. There's all of this other stuff that we can start thinking about building as layers of the Helium network. And like, be excited about that. That means your Helium token is now not associated with like LoRaWAN and a little bit of a 5G network. It's this opportunity across all of this. And the way this transition is starting to like shape up and the HIP that's proposed there. And this is a proposal, like it hasn't been voted on, like we're going to need a ton of community involvement. We're going to do a ton of trying to break out, like, what does this mean for the network? That many Eli 5s to sort of Twitter threads and all that.
But it's going to keep me busy. It's nice.
We're just starting to wrap our head around how to explain this stuff because the proposals have been incredibly technical so far, and we're starting to get better ways to explain and break that down. But yeah, 5G is going to be its own. This is just like a big wave of stuff to get back to 5G. 5G is going to be its own protocol on the network. There's going to be its own proof of coverage mechanism that may be something like mapper based. It could be phone based. I think we've seen at this point. I've seen it in person. It's a shoebox basically of this prototype 5G mapper with like antennas sticking out full of batteries. I see Siegfried's in there. And so we're going to see, I think, 30 of those very shortly out in the world. I know Foundation's we're going to get our hands on a couple. And so we're going to start seeing 5G mapping. I was really excited they were able to take the mapping UI that I built as a grantee and then recycle that as the 5G mapping platform. It's pretty cool. It's going to need a lot more work on top of that, but as a proof of concept, like we're rolling on getting 5G mapping out there. One of the really cool things that I'll mention about 5G mapping is that it offers an opportunity to see where we need hotspots deployed.
Yep.
Because like 5G, like in in some areas, like it's totally covered. Like you should not go install a 5G gateway there or a radio. Like it's just not going to do a whole lot. It's probably going to get throttled down because of the way the orchestrator sort of controls all that stuff. But if you're in an area that's like a red hexagon, it's like there's no coverage here. That's absolutely an area where you should go install a gateway. So it offers the opportunity to proof the network and show coverage, but also show us where we need coverage. And yeah, there are a million cool things happening there.
Let's see. So we're going to wrap this thing up here. Best place. So the single best place to go to kind of stay up to date on all this stuff is going to be the Helium Discord. And then from there, looking through all the channels and seeing kind of what tickles your fancy or what you're interested in. There's not a million different channels. There's some limit to the channels, but there's a lot of them in there. And that's probably the best place to go. And then we've got everybody on here's got their own thing. So I got gristleking.com. You can go to that if you want to learn more about what I'm doing. BFG Neil's got trackpack.io. I want to see the link to Trackpack is in the description, and that's pack with just a C, no K. And then 𝗱𝗲/Daniel's got Hotspotty. We talked about that. Dave Akers has got heliumanalytics.io to keep track of what's going on in the network in kind of visual ways. And Dave, I just got the visual display of quantitative information. And if I'm assuming you've read that, but it is awesome. And I thought of you as soon as I got it. And then Joey's the technical director at Helium Foundation. So you're getting to kind of see, hopefully, here some of the best in the kind of industry or in the ecosystem sharing their thoughts. And I really appreciate everyone coming on. Any last pieces from you guys? Did I miss anything big?
I want to ask Joey, when Starlink competitor on Helium is going to start coming up?
It's not as crazy of a question as you would think. Yeah. I'm going to say no right now just because like there's so many other things, but we've legitimately talked about satellites. So yeah, there may be something like that in the future. Yeah, soon. So.
Satellites. Love it. I'd love to get into like slinging satellites into space. That'd be so much fun.
Like the cool thing here is like, it's a lot cheaper than you would expect to put something into space. Like we can actually afford it. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah,
that would be so cool.
Dig it. Well, right on, guys. We will we'll be here next week, same time, 9:00 Pacific on Mondays for an hour. Try and knock it off pretty close to an hour. But yeah, thanks for coming on and super psyched to share the wealth. See you guys on Twitter, Discord, and the rest of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Catch y'all online.
Bye.